Welcome to In It to Win It. This is Steve Barton, and thank you for tuning in. We are here with Sam Lee of Northisle Copper. Sam, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks very much for having me, Steve.
Yes. Okay, go ahead and give us your story and tell us a little bit about your project.
Sure thing. So we have one of the largest and best copper gold porphyries in British Columbia. And as some people know, British Columbia is the epicenter for copper gold in Canada. So de facto, we have one of the largest and best copper gold porphyries in Canada. Currently, we have a resource base comprising of about 7 million ounces of gold in indicated and another 3.5 billion pounds of copper indicated. So in all respects, this is a very, very large copper project. But the kicker here is that the gold is an incredible byproduct, 7 million ounces of indicated, that facilitates this bridge to the copper initiative that everyone believes in today, right? So gold is here today, all-time highs. We are going to release a PEA in the next few weeks that will show a phased approach to develop this project, with effectively phase one being a dominant gold project that bridges into a copper and gold project.
Okay, and where exactly in the BC are you?
So we are on the north end of Vancouver Island. So this is adjacent to BHP's Island Copper Mine. So hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent on infrastructure from the government and BHP back in the 70s to develop a very similar size project, similar size mine. It was in production for about 24 years. And so the power, the roads, the town, Port Hardy, ports, that was all developed for, again, a very similar size mine. So that sunk capital now has obviously we're looking to repurpose that. We are only about 25 kilometers away from arguably is the closest deep sea water port from continental America to Japan. We've got paved roads that go right into our property, only about a 15-minute drive from Port Hardy. And Port Hardy itself is being used as the epicenter, the hub and spoke for any type of contractors that would be needed for our projects currently and going forward. So all in all, power, roads, ports, all very, very well established.
Okay, infrastructure's there. What is your market cap, cash, and debt?
So we are approximately $110 million market cap. We have no debt. We have approximately $12 million post equity raise that we announced and closed in December. That was subscribed by effectively two multi-billion dollar institutions, one in Canada, one in the US, and on the back end side. So we do not issue warrants. We do not issue traditional flow through. We do not issue anything that flows back at us in 4 months' time. We get very long-term institutional sticky money that, quite frankly, understands the value proposition as we do.
Okay, that can't really sell it. What are you going to do with that 11 million?
So I always believe that when you have a great project like ours, you develop it as quickly as possible. That's going to culminate obviously into the PFS. Preliminary economic. As I said, I apologize. In the next couple of weeks, we've been working very hard, diligently over the last year, to get that data, the resource, the metallurgy, the technical, to move that project forward as quickly as possible. That project is going to look very similar to a Blackwater Artemis project, where they've reduced their capital intensity initially by staging it into multiple phases. As I said, our first phase is going to be a gold dominant phase, which is going to bridge into a much larger copper and gold project, more capital intensive project. And so the initial capex is going to be quite favorable as Artemis Blackwater. That's a really interesting proxy, because that really enabled them to develop that project in 2020 to what it is today, which is the next large BC gold mine, $3.5 billion market cap company today. So that's really what we want to set our sights towards. The $10 million, 7 of which is soft dollars, so exploration money, we believe very strongly that we have to keep that parallel track going, and through exploration as well as development. And so what's created this ability for us to go after higher margin rock and first phase, lower capital density, a la Blackwater Artemis, is that we had great exploration success over the last 2 years. We made 2 discoveries, Northwest Expo and West Goodspeed. Northwest Expo is going to be in the resource and PEA. West Goodspeed is not. But we have 16 holes already. Part of the use of proceeds from this fundraising will be used to define and expand that higher margin, potentially higher margin resource at West Goodspeed, as well as going after the higher grade gold at Northwest Expo. So clearly what our focus here is to develop the project as quickly as possible, but not fall into that development arbitrage timeline and ensure that we're in that really high uh, uh, alpha part of the Lassonde curve. It's good exploration.
Okay. What tell us about the team that you have and what experience you guys have that relates to this project today.
Sure. So we're an exploration development company. So we need to have a team that actually knows what they're doing as it relates to every facet of that activity. Our chairman, Dale Corman, is a mining Hall of Famer. He's best known for doing exactly this with Penasquito, which he discovered with a team and then developed it to feasibility study. He ended up selling it to Glamis Gold Corp, $1.2 billion. It's currently one of Newmont's most prolific mine. And he's done that with many other projects, including San Nicolas, Zafranal, Casino, Western Copper. So the team really originated from him. He put it together. On my background is I'm a metallurgist by training, where I spent the last 20 years. I ran CIBC Global Mining, most recently Global Mining Practice out of Vancouver. And I've raised and bought and sold over $100 billion worth of these similar types of assets through that 20-year career. We have Kevin O'Kane, who's ex-BHP over 35 years. He actually built and worked at the Island Copper Mine, the adjacent BHP Island Copper Mine, for 12 years. And so he's very established, very respected mine.
He understands the area.
And he understands the benefits and the challenges that exist in the area. So that's something that's absolutely critical. Us, Martino Di Ciccio, CEO of Montage Gold, a company that's been a 3-4X over the last few months, Lundin-backed family. Our management team comes from guys that have found porphyries, that have built big mines like the Bruce Jack mine, Pretium in Chang, was effectively the employee number 5 at Pretium in 2010 and saw that through into production in 2017. And Robin Tolbert, our DB Exploration, was over 35 years of big porphyry experience across the world. So we do have a very, very seasoned team that have found, built, sold, and funded projects like this cumulatively for 200 years.
Okay. Tell us about the geology there.
So it's a copper porphyry system. What's really interesting about the geology is that, again, I'm a metallurgist, not a geologist, but I do understand it, that we are currently in the upper half of a porphyry system. Think of a porphyry system like a mushroom.
Yeah.
The upper cap is called the lithocap, and the real sort of prize where all of the enriched copper traditionally happens in that potassic zone, which is where all of the big companies in the world, including the gold company, VRICs and Newmonts, and obviously the Rio Tintos, the BHP's, Freeports, they're all looking for that potassic zone. So I'd say the vast majority of our resource actually exists in the lithocap, which is in that capping portion. We haven't even gotten to that potassic layer. So that's over 1 billion tons of resources currently mostly defined in that lithocap. And it's tilting, which means that stem portion, the portion that we're really interested in, is potentially closer to surface. All right. So we've got this really cool geometry in favor of us. We have a 35-kilometer district where we consistently see these porphyry centers starting from the BHP Island Copper Mine all the way up to our Northwest Expo Mine, consistently yielding the same structure, the same alteration mineralogy at surface, haven't even scratched the surface of what's underneath, which is another lever that we have as it relates to a Pemberton Hill project we own, which is it's pre-discovery deep porphyry center that's defined by a massive lithocap, 6.5 kilometer lithocap wide. So I think from an exploration and geological perspective, we want to work within this district because it is 35 kilometers long. Like, that's the key for us. This could be equivalent to some of the largest districts in the world. We have the starter pits, if you will, the first 30 years, open pits at surface. Our objective from an exploration perspective is to find that generational buried porphyry that could elongate this to 50 over 100 years. So we are continually rotating from what we can achieve ourselves to bigger exploration, higher risk, higher reward opportunities, most visibly through Pemberton Hills.
Okay. What's kind of your average grade across the deposits?
So we're very zonation.
Yeah.
In the sense that our current project, the one that defined our PEA in 2000, and 21 was Hushimu and Red Dog. On average, that NSR value per ton rock. So because we're multi-commodity with gold, copper, rhenium, and molybdenum, instead of doing it as a copper equivalent, we do it as an NSR value per ton. Rock. So that includes post recoveries, includes grades, includes your revenue on a post recovery basis. So that area in itself is approximately $22 per ton and off of effectively a $12 cost. So it's about 50% margins as per the 2021 PE. Okay. What we set out to do over the last 2 years was to go after higher grade, higher margin area in that northern corridor. So Northwest Expo and West Goodspeed and Red Dove. And so we've successfully established 2/3 of that exercise by identifying a resource base that's about 2 to 3 times higher NSR value per ton rough, right? Off of a very similar cost. So that's about a 75% margin versus a 50% margin. Okay. So that is the merit of good exploration in an area, i.e. the northern corridor, that hosts higher grades, right? And so if you want to talk about grades, it's a little bit confusing here, but we would have about 0.8, 0.9 grams per ton of gold. It's a gold dominant system in the porphyry northern end, and about 0.15, 0.2% copper versus a 0.2% copper or in 0.3 grams per ton gold in the other region. So, and if you
have 4 different spots here, yeah,
right. It was three different spots for the PEA, but one that is we're looking to bring into fruition this year through the $10 million fundraiser. So West Goodspeed is the 4th that you alluded to. That's not in the resource today. We have drilled 16 holes. We're probably going to be drilling another 15, 16 holes in 2025 to establish an additional resource of this higher margin area, which may double the phase 1 of the higher margin project.
Okay. How much is it per meter?
So this is the beautiful thing about, and this is the tangible metric you can rely on as it relates to the infrastructure that's currently there. So on a dollar per meter basis for a road base hole, it's approximately $450 Canadian per meter, all in. So to put that into perspective, drilling at say Filo in the Andes, very high up, has to sustain 2 camps in order for each hole.
Yeah,
that is about $2,500 US per meter. Right. So that is the merits of our project. I believe that because of this infrastructure, our drillers, there's no camp at the drill site. They do their work and then they drive 50 minutes to Port Hardy and stay in a hotel 3 nights. Right. That is the beautiful nature of what we're doing.
Close the infrastructure so you don't have to set up something at 14,000 feet too.
Right. So to answer your question, 450 on road base, approximately 700 if there are no roads and we have to do a helicopter tour. That's all Canadian.
Okay. All right. So that's Canadian. So that's about $7 American. That's right.
Exactly.
All right. Who owns your company?
So there are 4 individuals that own 40%. So our chairman, Michael Gentile, our chairman, Dale Gorman, Michael Gentile owns another significant portion. Donald K. Johnson owns 9.9%, and another individual rounds out the 40%.
Okay.
With management, myself, I just early exercise my options, paying, of course, a unrealized capital gain on the exercise because I believe in the company. That brings my shareholdings up to about 7.5 million, or on a total basis, approximately 5% on a partially diluted basis. And then the rest, 15% institutional, which 2 of which entered into this last offering, which we're very happy to have introduced to the company, and the remainder about 35% high net worth retail.
Okay, 35% retail.
Yeah.
Okay, you said 50%,
15%,
15% institutional. Okay, I was like, wow, my math is off, or it doesn't add up. Okay, and scalability, like how big could the size of the prize be? So right now we're, there's proven, probable, measured, indicated, and inferred. We're on indicated and inferred, and we got over 3 billion pounds of copper, right? And indicated. Inferred is 0.6 billion pounds of copper. Gold knocking on the door of 7 million ounces of indicated, 1.5 million ounces inferred. Does that sound right?
Correct.
Okay. What do you think it could get to once we start getting into proven and probable? What I'm asking you to pontificate on something that's impossible.
So going up to proven and probable actually gets a mineable economic resource, and so that'll become into fruition as we progress it into pre-feasibility and feasibility study.
Yes.
The question, I think, is the essence of the question is how much more can we find right now?
Yeah.
How much more resource is there? So clearly we're over 1 billion tons of resources. That's huge. That's the threshold for the minimum threshold for any major integrated company in the world, the BHPs, Rios, Freeports. So we've hit that mark already. What we want to find is more of the higher margin rock, so the higher grade rock that informs our phase one, right? And so, as I mentioned, this 2025 fully funded program is going after 2 areas that are looking to expand the lateral extents of these projects. One at Northwest Expo, the other at West Goodspeed. West Goodspeed isn't even a resource yet. It's already 1 kilometer of strike, so the chances of that becoming a resource in the through this program is quite high. And we've already seen grades consistent to the higher grade nature of Northwest Expo, so i.e. 0.5% copper equivalent, right? So it's, if we can bring that into fruition this year, there's a potential of potentially doubling phase one in terms of the sizability factor within that high grade zone. I think the other part of our focus is it's got to be Pemberton Hills, right? Because when you have the system that we have, when you have the district that we have, you're absolutely, it's incumbent on you to go after it as quickly and as hard as possible. The analogy that I make is Philo, right? Philo had a very interesting pre-feasibility study, PEA in 2017, which is great, but they went after the deeper porphyry and they funded it with, Luke Slandine, $20-30 million, and they went after the deeper porphyry, and they found it, and the rest is clearly history. So to me, that is possible within our district, 35-kilometer district. We have the open pit. We're going to define it in the next couple of weeks in terms of a PEA. But what really makes this a district play would be a discovery at Pemberton Mills. So stay tuned. We'll let you know how we tackle that nut. But clearly, that's a very important lever that gives you this exceptional blue sky potential for this 35-kilometer district.
Okay. All right. And what is the biggest unanswered question that is facing Northisle? So what's the biggest question mark? What do you need to answer? How much is it going to cost to answer it? What's the biggest unanswered question?
Okay, so I think the PA is going to very sufficiently address economics, right?
Yeah.
You're going to see the robust nature of this project. In terms of capital, and that's obviously my background. Cost of capital decreases the more gold you have, right? Because you could obviously sell a stream, you could sell a royalty at the right time at very, very low cost of capital, much lower than what you could access through a traditional bank, right? The fact that we have very clean concentrate, we're very low deleterious elements, copper and moly concentrate, with a gold credit in the copper concentrate gives you access to a lot of the off-takers. The fact that we're right on the tip of Vancouver Island, which goes right through the island to Japan, makes us an absolute target for the Japanese who require cleaner concentrate. When you access that group, you access potential low cost capital, debt capital from JBIG financing, so the national banks, right? So funding is absolutely, in my mind, again, speaking from 20 years of experience, when this project is ready to be built, it will get funded, no problem. There's so many levers you can pull, right? That's not even touching equity at this point. The biggest challenge we face has always been the perception of being on Vancouver Island. So Vancouver Island historically has been a mining extraction, resource extraction area, especially in the northern part of the island. In fact, from Campbell River, which is kind of mid-island, all the way up to the north, that entire infrastructure was pretty much built for the BHP's Ilo copper mine back in the 70s. So that is a sunk cost that has already been put in by the governments and BHP, something that, if repurposed for a project of our size, is going to be immensely attractive for any stakeholder involved. And so I charge people, in your listeners or viewers, to not even think that much outside of the box. If this is the biggest hurdle, this conceptual block that is preventing us from being $1 billion market cap company versus a $120 million market cap company, therein lies the opportunity. You don't have to go too far to understand that this has been a mining and natural resource extractive industry for many, many generations, and has the support of not only the provincial, federal government, is also the First Nation governments for which we have consent agreements with.
Okay. Okay. What you were talking about? So Japan is a little bit more. They go into what could be a little arbitrage there with what you were talking about. With Japan, might be more interested in this. I see the shipping lane is a lot easier than bringing it from the East Coast. Why are they more interested in what?
Because the Japanese are the trading groups, the Sumitomo's, the Mitsubishi's, Mitsui's. They trade the concentrate, and they also have smelters in country. And the smelters have a very high threshold for concentrate, clean concentrate, meaning that it has to be lower than 30 ppm arsenic. It has to be selenium has to be low. Obviously, they're not Chinese smelters, right?
Yeah.
By virtue of that, Robert Friedland actually talks about it beautifully. He said it back in 2021, I believe, that in 10 years, 20 years, you're going to have a 20 stage bifurcation of different types of concentrate, going from ethically procured to clean concentrates to having gold as a byproduct.
Yeah.
Whatever metric you want to actually measure it against, we check every single box and we know this because, again, this is the same porphyry district as the Island Copper Mine.
Yeah.
They sold their product to the Japanese. Okay, right? And so the Japanese view this as very strategic. Also, beyond that, there are 2 new smelters in Indonesia that's coming online, that already is online, which is going to cannibalize the concentrate markets for the Japanese as well, right? So right now we're seeing an incredible pressure on TCRCs, treatment charges, refining charges. They hit almost zero earlier last year, and they're hovering at around $30 per ton and 3 cents per pound. That, in a sense, it makes the demand for not only clean concentrate, our concentrate, but concentrate itself extraordinarily high. All right. So this is extremely strategic for countries like Japan. And as a result, just like Canada, there's a strategic movement within their government to support strategic initiatives such as critical metals, critical metal concentrates like this. And there's been many examples where you see JBEG, Japanese banks, similar to our Canadian investment banks, that provide these low cost of capital fundings for projects to secure this type of concentrate feed at market prices in the future. So that it's a huge. Most of your viewers probably don't appreciate that, but I would say a good significant portion of the $1 billion, $100 billion deals that I worked on had revolved around those sorts of deals. How do you find low cost of capital financing for extremely attractive concentrate material?
Interesting. Okay. Did not know that.
Yep.
All right. Well, Sam, thank you very much for coming on the show. If our viewers want to get in touch with you or your company, how can they do so?
You go to our website, www.northisle, NORTHISLE.ca, not com.ca. And then they can reach out to any one of us, and we'll respond very quickly.
All righty. We'll put your link down in the show notes below. Sam, thanks for coming on the show. And thank you for tuning in. Be sure to support the show and share this with anyone that you think needs to hear it. It's probably your buddy that can't stop talking about tech stocks. You have yourself a great rest of the day, and we will talk to you next time.